Let's start with a truth that might sting a little. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you believe you're worthy of. And that changes everything. We've been told for too long to be the cool girl, the one who doesn't care too much, ask for too much, or feel too deeply. But here's the truth. The women who are attracting the men we call quality are not playing small. They are not pretending. They are showing up wholehearted, unfiltered, brave. Because the real secret to attracting a quality man is this: you have to become deeply, unapologetically connected to yourself first. When you show up vulnerable, not weak, but vulnerable, you make space for real intimacy. You stop performing and start being. And that's when the game changes. Because a quality man, he's not looking for a show. He's looking for a partner who can meet him eye to eye, truth for truth. We live in a world that teaches us to armor up. Especially as women, we're told that if we want to be taken seriously, respected, or even loved, we have to be strong. But here's the catch. We've confused strength with emotional suppression. We've mistaken composure for confidence and silence for self-worth. And in doing so, we've buried one of the most magnetic forces we have: vulnerability. Let me be clear, vulnerability is not oversharing. It's not spilling your life story on a first date or crying in front of someone just to prove you're deep. Vulnerability is the courage to be seen. It's the willingness to show up as your whole self, even when there's no guarantee that you'll be accepted or understood. When you let yourself be vulnerable, you are saying, this is who I am, not who I think you want me to be. That kind of honesty is rare, and that kind of courage is powerful. Why? Because it calls forward a different kind of man, a man who isn't just looking for a beautiful surface, but for depth. A man who's emotionally mature enough to recognize that real connection only happens when both people are being real. Think about it. How many times have you hidden parts of yourself because you were afraid of being too much, too emotional, too passionate, too opinionated? And how many times has that actually led to the kind of love you truly want? Probably never. We don't attract deep love by being less of ourselves. We attract it by being brave enough to let someone see us. Vulnerability opens the door to connection, but more importantly, it filters out the people who were only ever interested in the edited version of you. That's a gift. Every time someone walks away because you were honest, you're being protected, not rejected. And here's the real magic. When you lead with vulnerability, you give the other person permission to do the same. That's how emotional intimacy is built. Not through perfection, but through truth. You stop performing, they stop performing. Now you're relating. That's where love lives. So no, vulnerability isn't weakness. It's not naive. It's not something you outgrow. It is the highest form of courage. It is a strength forged in the fire of self-awareness. And it is the gateway to the kind of love that doesn't just look good on the outside, but feels safe, steady, and real on the inside. If you want to attract a quality man, don't lead with your mask, lead with your heart. Because the right man, the real man, will not be intimidated by your vulnerability. You'll be honored by it. You attract what you believe you deserve. Let's sit with that for a moment. You attract what you believe you deserve. Not what you hope for, not what you pray for, not even what you say you want. You attract what your inner belief system tells you you're worthy of receiving. This truth can be both empowering and uncomfortable because if you're attracting men who don't show up, who breadcrumb you, disrespect you, or only offer you the bare minimum, it's not because that's all that's out there. It's because at some level, a part of you believes that's all you're worthy of accepting. And that belief didn't come from nowhere. It came from early relationships, it came from culture, it came from moments where you gave your heart and were met with silence. It came from trauma, from abandonment, from being told directly or indirectly that your needs were too much, that your standards were too high, that love had to be earned or chased or begged for. So you adjusted. You shrunk yourself to fit into love that didn't have room for all of you. You rationalized mistreatment because at least he's here. You made excuses. You held on when you should have walked away, not because you're weak, but because your belief system was quietly running the show behind the scenes. But here's the good news. Beliefs are not facts. They can be challenged. They can be rewritten. And when they change, everything around you begins to shift. If you want to attract a man who is emotionally intelligent, grounded, available, consistent, and respectful, you have to believe deep in your bones that you deserve exactly that. And that belief isn't just mindset, it's embodied. Shows up in your standards, in how quickly you let go of what doesn't feel good, in how you speak up when something feels off, and how you no longer chase breadcrumbs because you're holding out for a full meal. When you believe you're worthy of more, you stop entertaining less. You stop waiting for potential to become action. You stop thinking that love has to be painful or dramatic to be real. You stop settling for almost. Instead, you start choosing differently. You become more discerning, not from a place of fear, but from a place of clarity. You walk with a different energy. You hold your boundaries, not to push people away, but to make room for someone who's ready to meet you there. And men can feel this. A woman who knows her worth is magnetic in a way that doesn't rely on looks, charm, or cleverness. Her energy says, I am whole, I want love, but I don't need to be rescued. I don't need to be chosen to feel complete. And a man who is also whole will recognize that. He'll be drawn to it, not intimidated by it. Because a quality man doesn't want to fix you or chase you into love. He wants to partner with someone who knows who she is. So the deeper question isn't, where are all the good men? The deeper question is, do I believe I deserve one? And if the answer is shaky, start there. Because when you do the internal work of healing, unlearning, and truly valuing yourself, you change the kinds of connections you attract, not because the world changed, but because you did. Boundaries tell others how to love you. Let's make something very clear. Boundaries are not walls. They're not ultimatums, punishments, or cold, rigid defenses. Boundaries are expressions of self-respect. They are the language of emotional safety. They're the quiet, steady way we teach the world, this is how I deserve to be loved. And if that makes you uncomfortable, you're not alone. Many of us, especially women, were raised to believe that being nice means being available, agreeable, and endlessly accommodating. We're taught to ignore our discomfort, tolerate disrespect, and give second, third, and 10th chances, all in the name of love. But here's the truth. Love without boundaries isn't love. It's self-abandonment dressed up in sacrifice. Let me say that again. When you say yes to things that feel like no's, when you shrink to avoid conflict or bend to be liked, you're not being loving, you're being afraid. And that fear is robbing you of the kind of relationship you truly want. Because here's what boundaries really do. They filter out the people who only want access to you, but not the responsibility of knowing you, caring for you, or honoring you. That's not rejection. Oh, that's protection. When you set a boundary, whether it's around time, communication, emotional availability, or physical intimacy, you're not pushing anyone away. You're creating the conditions under which love can thrive. Think of it this way. You don't walk into someone's house and just rearrange their furniture, dig through their drawers, or invite yourself to stay the night. Why? Because they have walls, they have doors, they have a structure that tells you this space matters, treat it with care. That's what your boundaries do. They say, this is my space. If you want to be here, here's how. And a quality man, he respects that. He doesn't flinch when you say no. He doesn't guilt you when you need time. He doesn't push your limits. He honors them because he has done the work to understand that love isn't about testing limits. It's about honoring the human being in front of you, and that starts with the boundaries she's brave enough to hold. Now, let's be honest, setting boundaries can feel terrifying, especially if you've spent years pleasing, performing, or proving your worth. At first, they might feel like barriers to connection. You might think, if I say no, he'll leave. If I speak up, I'll scare him off. But here's the beautiful paradox. The right boundary doesn't push the right person away. It pulls them closer. Why? Because it builds trust. It says, I'm willing to be honest with you. I trust you enough to show you where I stand. I value this connection enough to make it safe for both of us. Boundaries don't close your heart. They protect it so you can love more deeply, more freely, and more sustainably. They create a relationship where love isn't just about chemistry, but also about care, where you're not constantly performing or pleasing, but where you're being met fully, clearly, authentically. So if you're wondering how to attract a quality man, remember this. You don't teach someone how to love you by explaining it over and over. You teach them by modeling it through your standards, your voice, your values, and your boundaries. And the ones who can meet you in that space, those are the ones worth building with. Authenticity draws in the emotionally available. We hear this word a lot, authenticity. Be authentic, be yourself. But let's be honest, it's easier said than done, especially in dating, because most of us weren't raised to be authentic. We were raised to be liked. We learned to perform, to say what we think will get a good response, to show only the polished parts, to hide the messy, complicated, vulnerable parts of who we are, because somewhere along the way, someone taught us that being fully seen was risky, dangerous, too much. So we shapeshift, we tone ourselves down, we become who we think we should be to earn connection. And the truth is, yes, we might get attention that way, but attention isn't the same as intimacy, and performance isn't the same as partnership. Because here's what authenticity really means. It's when your inner world, your values, your voice, your truth, is fully aligned with your outer behavior. It's not about being loud, it's about being real. And when you lead with that kind of honesty, something powerful happens. You start attracting people who are aligned with who you actually are, not who you are pretending to be. This is especially true when it comes to emotionally available men. These are men who aren't looking for a fantasy or a flawless image. They're looking for a connection that feels safe, honest, and grounded. And the moment they sense authenticity, they exhale. Because finally, there's room for them to be real too. Think about it like this. Emotionally available men are not drawn to perfection. They're drawn to presence. They're drawn to women who are in touch with their emotions, clear in their communication, and unafraid to say, this is who I am, this is what I want, this is where I'm growing. Why? Because emotional availability isn't about always having it together. It's about being willing to show up as you are. When you're authentic, you become a mirror. You reflect truth. And the men who aren't ready for truth, they'll run, they'll ghost, they'll say you're too intense, too honest, too deep. Let them. Your authenticity is not a liability, it's a filter. It naturally repels the emotionally unavailable. And it gently, powerfully draws in the ones who are looking for something real. But this kind of authenticity requires courage because it means showing your quirks, your passions, your fears. It means being honest about what you're looking for, not in a defensive way, but in a grounded, open-hearted way. It means saying, I want something meaningful, even if that risks turning someone off. It means not laughing at jokes that make you uncomfortable, not pretending to be low minimal when your heart is actually high capacity, not agreeing just to keep the peace when your truth is whispering, speak up. Authenticity is about choosing truth over performance, clarity over confusion, connection over chemistry alone. Because chemistry without authenticity is like fireworks, bright, exciting, and over in a flash. But authenticity, that's what sustains love. That's what builds trust. That's what lays the foundation for a relationship where you both feel seen, known, and chosen, not for what you do or how well you play the game, but for who you are. So if you're tired of attracting emotionally unavailable men, ask yourself this: am I showing up as my real self? Or am I showing up as who I think I need to be in order to be loved? Because when you get honest with yourself and then have the courage to stay honest with others, you don't just attract love, you attract alignment. And that's the difference between feeling wanted and feeling safe. If you want to know what separates a man who's ready from one who's just available, look at this emotional intelligence. It's not how much money he makes, not how confident he seems, not how charming or attractive or well-spoken he is. It's how he handles emotions, yours, his, and the ones that arise between you. In a world that glamorizes surface-level attraction, emotional intelligence is the real currency of healthy relationships. And if you're serious about attracting a quality man, then you need to understand this truth. Emotional intelligence isn't a bonus, it's a filter. It helps you discern who's here to grow with you and who's just here to feel good in the moment. Who's emotionally present and who's emotionally unavailable behind a charming smile. So what is emotional intelligence? At its core, it's the ability to recognize, understand, and manage your own emotions, and to respond to the emotions of others with empathy, patience, and maturity. An emotionally intelligent man won't always get it right, but he will be accountable. I'll know how to say things like, I hear you. I didn't realize that hurt you. Thank you for telling me. That wasn't my intention, but I understand how it landed. Let's figure this out together. Now contrast that with a man who lacks emotional intelligence. He gets defensive when you bring up concerns. He shuts down when things get uncomfortable. He gaslights, he blames, he turns your vulnerability into an argument. And you're left walking on eggshells, over-explaining or second-guessing yourself, not because you're too much, but because he doesn't have the capacity to meet you emotionally. Let that sink